Hello and welcome to the live stream event. We are live, as you can see, today for Duda's webinar on achieving a 90% demo to customer conversion rate. That is pretty impressive, to say the least. I'm joined by some great folks. First and foremost, I should probably get my camera to not blur me out too much. Not that I'm really the main attraction here. The other folks are far more attractive and the attraction for today. But I'm Stefan Bajayo. I'm your host for this webinar. To give a little bit of background about myself, I have about 2.5 decades of experience in SaaS and online marketing. I helped build a company called Conductor, which today is considered the preeminent content/SEO platform for enterprise out there. Was lucky enough to go through an acquisition by WeWork and a purchase back from WeWork, so that's kind of fun. Got to live inside the belly of the beast for a while. Then went off to become a CMO of a SaaS software, and now run a company called VibeLogic, which is a SEO agency. So I am so lucky today to be joined by three amazing individuals. We have Rick Marais, who's the co-founder of Shazami. Shazami is a platform devoted to, I'm going to let him get into it really, but devoted to helping recruitment and staffing organizations really capitalize on their digital presence and be able to actually show up out there, which is close, near and dear to my heart. He's really passionate about technology, solving problems and optimizing, obviously, recruitment websites. He likes long walks on the beach. He's a Capricorn. Ultimately, Rick is going to provide some great insight today into how Shazami was actually able to take a partnership with Duda, your hosts, and combine that into a really amazing customer experience, prospect experience, actually, that turns into an amazing customer experience. To that end, we have Amelia Danzica, who's actually the founder and managing director of Growth Molecules. She has an amazing background when it comes to customer success management, focusing on revenue, both attainment as well as, I would say, both the expansion and the protection of that revenue, which is fundamental. If you're in SaaS, everyone knows, right? Sales absolves all sins, but renewal rate makes sure it actually continues. So Amelia is very close, near and dear to those two topics, and her expertise in customer success and ultimately customer experience is going to really help us understand how those key points can actually transition from a great sales process into a really good experience post-conversion. So that's where we hope Amelia will be able to, well, we don't hope, we know Amelia is going to throw a lot of insights, so get ready for that. And then, of course, speaking of conversions, we'd be completely remiss not to have someone who is a co-founder of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ayat, it's the first company is Invest and FigPie.
Yep.
Yes, they're spelled interestingly. You can see that on the screen. So, however, Ayat is here to help us talking about the expansion of marketing optimization, where we can actually think about UX and CRO and bring that together in order to find actionable insights in that customer journey and turn them into conversion rates. So we're super lucky to have Ayat Shakrudi here. Shakiri, sorry. I knew I was going to botch someone's name. I almost botched Bajayo, which is my own, so apologies. But I think we should be ready to go. I'm going to let Rick take over. Shazami has this awesome story, which we'll go through today. And again, it's getting at this heart. Again, don't want to, jump the shark or do any kind of raining on his parade. But just as an intro, they have an amazing experience in having figured out how to use a partner to understand the woes of their prospects and clients and solve for those up front in order to really make this concept of we know you, we understand you, we see you, we feel you, and now we've solved for you, carry through. And as you'll probably hear from everyone on stage today, that's pretty fundamental if you're going to build a real lasting SaaS. So Rick, take it away.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Duda, for making this happen. It's always good to be able to chat to fellow technologists and people that are passionate about looking after their clients and really delivering a product that works. So glad to be here today. So look, Stefan, you gave us a great introduction. Just a couple more things. I live in Sydney, so all my travels around the world always involves 22 or 24 hours. Like I'm in London today and I've spent 24 hours on the plane and pretty much 48 hours of no sleep. So it is something that comes with living in the best place in the world, Sydney, which I love dearly. One of the things that I think both Nicole, my co-founder, who unfortunately is not here today, and myself are passionate about is we hate seeing people waste money due to bad tech choices. And that's partly you'll see some of the decisions that we've made are very much at the heart of that. So look, firstly, to frame everything, who and what is Shazami? So we are a recruitment website platform, an employer career site platform that makes it easy for people to create, edit, and update an evolving brand. And really what we've done is we've made it so that anyone that uses the platform has a powerful tool that can build super brands online. And that's really the difference that I'm going to talk to you about today, because that has not been able to be done before. So here's just a couple of visuals to show you what it looks like in the real world. This is one of our clients. You can see it's a top recruiting brand. You can see it's a search function on the homepage, very similar to e-commerce sites. And I guess that's sort of, you have to visualize that we're an e-commerce site in the recruitment space. So rather than selling products, we're selling jobs. So the whole concept is of refinement, like eBay and Amazon. You've got the left navigation to refine. You've got the details on the page. It tells you what you're looking at. You then look at the detail. So this could be a watch or a toaster. You can see all the details. You can then share it, subscribe for a job alert that it sends you jobs every time it matches, and then you can apply as well. So that whole process is the fundamental part of it. But then you have things like consultant or recruiter pages that pull everything together. You've got testimonial pages that pull everything together. You then have landing pages, sector pages, like everything is integrated to the maximum ability. So that's really just visually showing you that's what our platform does. So a bit about the background, because there is a big story to it. So my co-founder, Nicole, and I both started in 2007 in the job board space, commercial job board space. So think Monster, think Career Builder. We both started in that space. We got some great technology together. It was a very crowded market in Australia. There were 3 key brands fighting it out. We were the 2 newcomers. Unfortunately, the GFC hit in 2008, and being the newbies on the block and not proven, they cut us straight away. And what we did was we actually used the technology that we developed, which was at the time pretty much the latest and best technology you could get. We turned that into a recruitment website platform. And I guess that's where the journey of Shazami started. We morphed into a very bespoke proprietary CMS recruitment platform that required lots of attention. We were building everything from scratch, had lots of developers. But some of the milestones that we achieved was that we were the first responsive SaaS recruitment platform, and we had clients that were the top 5 global recruiters. We're talking the largest in the world using our product in the APAC region because they couldn't solve the things that we were solving themselves. So we actually got a lot of insights and a lot of technical advances in that space. So what were the problems that we learned over the years? We had that, we were doing that for 12 years. The problem that the industry had was it was very code heavy. It was always reliant on developers. So if you wanted to create a landing page, or you wanted to change an image, or you wanted to change a page, you had to lodge a ticket with whoever was looking after the proprietary platform. You had to provide a detailed scope, the usual stuff. You got it back after 5 days. The developer who doesn't understand recruitment gave it back to you. It wasn't exactly right. Had to do rework. It was costly. It took time. But by that stage, because recruitment is actually a very fast-moving industry, because if someone leaves, you want to replace them. You can't wait around for a week to get something done. Or if you're in the volume game of temporary recruitment, you need 10 people tomorrow. You don't need them in a week. So the whole concept that developers held the business to ransom and then never really delivered, ended up in very frustrated customers. And I was there because we had old technology. So I know exactly, you get calls from people yelling at you saying, we've got to place 100 people, we can't get this done. So very frustrated customers, low satisfaction, low NPS, high churn, little innovation, and everything was pretty much hard-coded, from the integrations to pretty much everything. So it was always, the salesperson, Nicole, was at the end of the phone, often people yelling at him going, this is just can't continue, blah, blah, blah. But that was the industry. There was no innovation. Everyone had legacy proprietary platforms. So that was the problem we were trying to solve. So what did the clients actually want? And that's sort of what we learned over the years back then. They wanted things to be simple, no coding, so that anyone really could use it. They didn't have to go to developers. They wanted ongoing innovation. They really said, there's e-commerce sites out there that make it easy for people to do whatever. Why can't the recruitment industry have that? And then there's the obvious other things that they're out there, like SEO optimization is always high on the list, security, and they don't want to always have to lodge a ticket. They want to do it themselves in their own time, at night or in the morning. They wanted to be self-managed. So they really wanted the ability to move fast and have their brand continuously adapt online, which totally wasn't the case with the platforms that were out there. So it became very difficult for companies to move forward. And what the end result was that they would go to someone new and they build a site. And because it was so hard, it would stay the same for 3 years, no innovation. The brand literally stayed stagnant for 3 years and nothing ever happened. And that was the typical issue that we knew was the case. So the journey. So Nicole and I sat down one day and said, this has to change. We have to be the innovators. We have to sit down and figure out why it can't be like Shopify or the other industries that are out there like Canva, where anybody can just hop in and do what they want to do. So we literally started with a blank sheet of paper. There was nothing that we brought across from the previous business. We said, we don't even want to think about what we had. We want to totally start from scratch. So that's what we did. I spoke over probably 3 months with 300 different platform vendors, with other people outside the recruitment industry. And that's really where the journey started. So we had many trials, many MVPs that we spun up quickly, but it was really about the speed that we're doing things at. We made the decision very early. If Nicole or I couldn't understand it and we couldn't do it as people that don't know coding, because I don't know how to code, neither does Nicole, we ditched it straight away. So we were very ruthless in that assessment. And also the other thing was that we had to think differently, because we didn't have $5 million, $10 million sitting there for us to spend on stuff. So we couldn't employ a CTO and a business analyst and a room full of people to go on the journey of building it from scratch. So we had to think totally differently. And the more we did research and the more we spoke to people, no code is sort of where we wanted to go. We absolutely wanted to go down the no code route. And the speed of the MVP was also critical to us, because we didn't have a year or 2 years to waste and see if it's going to work. So we literally were going as fast as we could. We were making as many decisions as quickly as we could. And, some of the things that also were important to us was it had to be globally supported, had to support a SaaS infrastructure, architecture, and had to have robust API. So, we took a very aggressive approach, and not having the capital, I think influenced the way we went about it, because we just didn't have the millions to do it. So the solution that we ended up with after many MVPs and 6 months of testing, we ended up with 2 no-code platforms and a very complex middleware that pulled everything together. So we chose no-code because we never wanted to be responsible for the core functionality. Again, we wanted to be the recruitment marketing specialist and have the IP for recruitment marketing, not how to build a button widget or how to do redirects or the core things that platforms had. So we made sure that it had a microservices architecture, and what we found was that we could actually move at 10 to 20 times faster than we could ever do before. So integrations, for example, took days rather than months to do because the fundamentals were there already. So it ended up being more cost effective, and that ultimately, as you'll see in the next couple of slides, meant a better pricing structure for our clients. We also ended up with a small team of people to support the platform, and we've now got over 160 custom widgets and sections and all sorts of other things to support our clients, and that's ever evolving. So, the solution was really about reinventing this space, and that's really what ultimately we ended up doing. So even before we started with a blank sheet of paper, Nicole and I spent a fair bit of time thinking about what would lead to success. So the importance of that for us was we knew the problem, we knew the people that were using us, we knew the frustration. So what ultimately would lead to success for us? So the things that we locked in on are the things you can see on the screen. So the ease of use. So Nicole and I can't code. So one of the challenges was that we had to build the first 10 client sites ourselves without code, without any assistance. We had to build it. And those sites are still up and running, and Nicole and I built them. And that was really the test. If we could do it, it meant that anyone in the world and anyone on this call can actually build a recruitment website. Now that was unheard of. So that was super important. The other one was the integration. So we now have 40 integrations with different applicant tracking systems or databases or CRMs, whatever you want to call it. And again, in the past, they had to all be coded. So you had a day or 2 days of coding. Now it's 5 minutes and it's up and running, and you can change it and you don't need to know coding. So again, that was a major test. The other one that really is relevant to everything else that we've discussed is the pricing. We were able to, for the first time, do open, transparent, and cost-effective pricing, whereas before it was always, very much smoke and mirrors. Is your office nice? How big is the company? And the pricing was never sort of open and transparent. So ours now is open, transparent, no contracts. We make it as simple and as easy as possible for people to understand our pricing. Now, the next one is probably the one that Nicole and I are most passionate about, is that the 24/7 chat support. As I said before, the businesses that are our clients, being recruiters and corporate TA teams, need to move fast because they need to fill roles. If a CFO leaves, they don't have 6 weeks to fill that role. They need to fill it as quickly as possible. So if they need to spin up a landing page or do something special and they need help, they need 24/7 support. So that really goes hand in hand with the first item. There's no use having 24/7 support if you have a product that is so difficult to use and needs developers to continually do stuff. So our support is actually amazing because 95% of our support chats are solved on the spot within less than 5 minutes. So that is really the part of 1 and 2. It's so easy to use that typically all we direct them is to an article or to a video, or either do them or show them how to do it to make the change. And that's really the power of what we've created, in that it's so simple for anyone to use and for us to support them. But ultimately then goes into, it's all good that we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, but are their clients and end users happy using the product as well? So our clients need to have their clients and their candidates being able to use the product and be happy, and it all works efficiently. So that obviously is the case. And then that leads to having the freedom to build great digital brands. And what we see now is just amazing, because it's almost we are removed from their journey. We're removed from their digital brand because they can do so much themselves. So we often go to client sites and they're totally changed. And they've built out landing pages and sections like the Office Dog campaign or the Easter campaign, where they've built stuff that they haven't even spoken to us about. And this really is the evolvement of this space where people just go away and they'll rebuild their site. So we've got some clients that have rebuilt their sites 3 or 4 times, whereas in the past they couldn't do that. We now have one of our biggest clients. They're redoing 14 of their sites in 23 languages without even talking to us. That has never been done before. It's unheard of because it's so complex. And this really, again, is part of the whole journey that we started with, that we're so passionate about developing something that could be used by anyone. And then the last one, obviously, every business model needs to have some form of measurement and making sure that there's a return on investment. We know that our clients just love it because it is cost effective and they can track all the data and analytics. They can see how their own brand performs online, but also money that they spend promoting the brand on Facebook or LinkedIn or Google. The results that they get from that are measurable by every click, by every application. They can see it all. So sort of this page is summing up really what we achieved. The next slide and the final slide really is the outcome. Often Nicole and I just, when we jump on a demo, we often do the big ones together. But when you see the smiles on people's faces, smiles on their dials when they see Shazami for the first time, it's almost, you can see within the first 30 seconds of the demo, they just love the product because it's so simple and they can see what we've done, because they're used to, archaic proprietary platforms or WordPress where you can't change anything. And all of a sudden they're just happy, they're smiling for the first time, because you can tick every box on their wish list that they've had for probably 3 years, 5 years, that they can't do anything. And all of a sudden they can tick them all off because it's so easy. And that's really why we do get only 5-star reviews. We've got 98 of them. And that's pretty unheard of in B2B SaaS products. You always get people that will have problems or don't like it. We pretty much are striving for the best scoring possible with our clients. And that's why, part of the topic of today, that's why 90% of people who see it, they buy it. And the 10% that don't are probably, 6 to 12 months away because they're in contract or they have some other issues to deal with. And what that's led to is we've now got 600 clients ranging from one-man organizations to the world's largest, using our product in 23 countries, 18 languages. And as I said before, 95% of all support chats are solved on the spot, and we're 40 integrations. So look, we have really looked at every single point of the process and made sure that we are as good as we can be in all of those. Here are some of our clients. You can see big brands, small brands, but it's an ever-growing list. And thank you for having me, and look forward to the discussion that we're going to have now.
Great, thank you so much, Rick. That was insightful. I think you all probably, I don't know how many of you are actually in the market for a recruitment or recruitment website, frankly. But if you're in the SaaS space, there's a tie and there's something that binds that's very clear in the way Rick went about doing what he went about doing, which is, man, did they do their research. I mean, 300 platforms, knowing all the pain points, right? They say, like, what are the best solutions? The mother of ingenuity is really like, that's where it comes from. You have to feel the pain, right? And it sounds like Rick felt that pain, and with his partner Nicole, and they, having lived through that, decided they would find a solution that would really speak to. And you obviously spoke to it really well, because 90% conversions unheard of. So clearly you need to make sure that experience goes through from a sales process of, we get you, we see you, we know you, into a we are really what we say we are, which Amelia, I'll let her do a little more introduction on herself and a little more background, but Amelia can definitely get into what that customer experience is all about and ensuring that that's kind of followed through, right? Because the front end and knowing your customer is one thing, providing them the solution is another, and then meeting the expectation is a third. So I'll let Amelia just give us a little more on that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephen. Rick, great presentation. I know we've already seen the dry run, but to see it live, very interesting. And I'm sure your competitors are jealous of the experience that you're giving, even the end user, right? So because I'm post-acquisition, and all too often, companies are so hyper-focused on the marketing persona, and then they're focused on the sales and closing it, showing those numbers to the board. They often neglect what happens now. And then how do we make those customers repeatable customers? And having 5 stars and 98 of them in such a short time helps, because you know that those customers are going to renew. There is no way they would put their name or their brand on like G2 if they really didn't believe in your product. So that's the first point. The second is how much money, and if we pull up some slides here, I have some fresh stats that I would love to share with all of you. Thank you, Anton. Look, poor customer experience results in a substantial financial loss. According to some research done by Business Wire and Qualtrics, they estimate that $4.7 trillion are lost, not only in revenue because of customer experience, but in the US alone, you're looking at 1.6 trillion. That's significant. And yes, it's due to long wait times, unfriendly service, poor product experience and service, but also from the marketing perspective and the user interface, it's a continuous cycle, right? If you have someone who is happy with your product, they're going to go tell someone else, and that influences the marketing. Your marketing costs go down because you don't have to sell as hard to that person. Your best marketers and your cheapest, quite frankly, are your customers. And that's why customer experience is so critical, and why so much of the loss is just so significant. If we go to the next slide, you'll notice that specifically in software as a service, where that's my expertise, we help software companies who are struggling to protect and grow revenue. You'll notice that the percentage of users that never go through onboard or actually complete the experience that even gets you anywhere to adoption is 75%. That's so significant. So you just spent all this money, the customer acquisition cost, which again, investors look at. They're thinking, what's your CAC, your customer acquisition cost? If it's really high and they never get through onboarding, the idea of getting additional investment should be put to bed for a while until you fix this number, because you have to get them through onboarding. And there are 2 main reasons why companies churn. 1, poor onboarding, you're looking at it right now, and 2, your buyer, your champion leaves. And just alone in tech, we've had over 400,000 people lose their jobs with a reduction in workforce. That's 400 red flags. If a new user comes in and they feel that the user experience is difficult, they're going to churn. They'll never get through even a trial with your product. They're just going to walk away and say, no, I'm more used to this product. We're going to implement this. I'm in charge now. So this high abandonment rate just really highlights the critical importance of effective onboarding processes, and that you want to continuously be improving it, understanding the user, experience and really having clear guidance with a personalized touch, right? You're understanding the persona you're selling to and then the personas that are using it, because whoever Rick might be selling to, for example, may be very different than the actual day-to-day users. So if you go to the next slide, I have one more. Hopefully this really will get to the point, but customers abandon the experience after a poor customer service. And I won't name any of the companies, but because I work in customer experience and working with so many companies, I see the best in class. I also see the worst in class, and those poor canned responses when you're struggling to complete a transaction will really result in a lost customer, even to the point where I was ready. I won't name the company, but a trademark. I was trademarking one of the methodologies that we offer companies, and my credit card was in there. I was trying to click to move forward, and the person was not understanding the challenge. Even if I sent screenshots, sent it more than once, I finally just let the person know it's clear I'm not getting through. You continue to send me canned experiences. I went to another website and completed my transaction with one of their competitors. 86% of consumers report that they would leave a brand after 2 or 3 bad experiences. I left after 1. They never got a penny from me. Another study found that 49% of customers have left a brand in the past 12 months specifically due to poor customer experience. And HubSpot, for any of you that use the company for a CRM, my company does. It came directly from them, and they're hyper focused on how do we get you through the free trial seamlessly with an amazing experience so that then you become a customer. So these 3 statistics underscore the importance of providing consistent and high quality customer service and user experience to retain and maintain these customers. So invest in your customer experience to have not only a significant impact on their own business, but also promote long-term satisfaction. And I think that's why we're all here today, because no longer is the sale good enough. You have to get through the entire customer experience through onboarding, adoption, renewal, expansion, and customer advocacy. That's the point where people often fail to invest any marketing dollars, is how do we get those 98 G2 reviews very quickly? And how do we make sure they're all 5 stars? And that comes down to the user experience.
Great
so
point.
I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah,
Stephen.
that's great points there. I mean, it's interesting because I've always said it's not a funnel, it's an hourglass, and the sand goes to the bottom. And people need to remember that. I agree with you. I think I saw a stat, and I'm gonna have to pull up one of my previous presentations for it that came from Gartner, where CMOs were planning on spending their money, and post-funnel acquisition was way lower than it should be. Like post-funnel, I should say marketing, which is, the post-acquisition. And it was really kind of annoying and upsetting to see that was not where they were going to be spending as much of their funds, because it's a short-sighted, I've got to fill someone's sales numbers in order to keep people happy. But in SaaS, we all know it's a subscription, right? So if you don't actually have people continue to subscribe, you don't have a business, at least not one that's SaaS. So speaking of conversions and thinking through, how we actually turn some of these web users and folks that are visiting our sites into actual leads that then go to Rick and, go through the process where 90% of them are like now, and the other 10% sound like they're like in a minute, which is, yeah, exactly. Conversion rate of 90%. Ayat, you can probably give us, I know more than probably, you can definitely give us some ideas regarding how to take that insight, right? When you're doing that research and you understand that persona and you go through that process, give us a little bit, if you don't mind, about how you apply that to an actual site. Like, I don't get to speak to that person yet. I only have my site to do it. So how do I make that happen?
Absolutely. Great to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Ayat Shakari, co-founder of Invesp. Invesp is a conversion rate optimization company. We've been doing it since 2006, before CRO was even a thing. So really, I love the presentation that Rick gave, because, again, like, we're all about simplifying the experience, making the experience as easy as possible, providing a seamless kind of interaction for that end user, because ultimately that's what's going to get them to actually be more engaged. That's what's going to get you to actually persuade them. But of course, ultimately, we work with a lot of different brands, and every brand is different. And so from one brand to the next, you always have to cultivate an experience that is going to highlight why they should go with you. Why should they move forward with you versus any of the other competitors out there? And that's really at the core of it, is that it's about kind of understanding, well, what are those customer needs? I know that Rick kind of mentioned how they tried to really understand, like, what are those pain points? And ultimately, every site needs to do that. You need to understand the pain point of your customers. We do a lot of customer interviews. So if you already have a customer, we'll kind of take those customers, we'll talk to them, and we conduct what we call a jobs to be done interview. And that's trying to understand really, like, what was the progress that you were trying to make with selecting, our particular service or, product or sign up or whatever it is. And that helps you kind of identify areas of improvement throughout your site. But then, of course, there's also analytics. We have so many tools. There's heat maps, there's session recordings. There's so many tools that you can deploy on your site that can give you a lot of insight into how your customers are actually behaving and what they're doing throughout the site experience in order for you to actually improve them. But we don't just go ahead and improve on those. What I would always recommend to people is make sure whatever you're doing, whatever changes you're making, even in your recruitment. And that's why I actually asked Rick a question like, hey, can you guys do any type of A/B testing within the platform itself? And, he said yes. But I do think it's so important I found this insight. I don't want to just deploy, a solution and then figure out, hey, did it actually have an impact or not, looking at my analytics in my backend. It's an MVP, right? Like, that's the name of the game. I want to make it easy. I want to deploy some sort of like an MVP, split the traffic between what they were originally seeing and what they're seeing in the actual solution, and then see what type of an impact it has. So it's measurable. I see, right away, I see what that impact had of that particular change, whether it's copy change, whether it's design change, whether it's, switching around elements. And of course, all of these problems that you're identifying are coming through you really understanding a little bit more about your customer behavior, looking at some of these amazing tools that are out there that can provide you with some great insight into the customer flow throughout your funnel. So I, love that, Amelia is very focused on customer experience, because I do believe, again, like, the actually converting somebody who is a reoccurring customer, you have I forget, 10x, better chance of converting versus a new, fresh customer. But at the same time, you are getting a lot of traffic to your site, but I want to make sure I'm actually converting all of it. So in order for me to do that, of course, I have to deploy some of these tactics to kind of create a stickier, more engaging experience on my site in order for them to actually move forward and convert. I always say that conversion rate optimization is not a light switch you turn on or off. It's ongoing, because things are changing. The economy is changing. There's so many factors that impact conversion rate. So for you to be like, I'm done, this is it, this is what you're going to get, that's not the right way to go, because ultimately, again, your site, there's so many factors that are impacting your competitors are doing things. They're always innovating. So in order for you to be at the cusp of innovation, you need to be deploying some sort of conversion rate optimization in terms of understanding your customers, understanding their behavior, and then deploying different types of changes based on the research that you conduct in order for you to be able to test it and figure out, hey, did this have an impact? And if it did, what did it teach me about my customers? What more did I learn? We have like kind of what we call the customer Bible, really trying to understand that customer, further through the different testing that I do on the site. I want to understand what's making them tick, what's making them actually make this decision.
So yeah, let's do a cheat sheet for a second. Number one thing you see most customers get wrong, like right off the bat? Something someone could probably take a look at right now without having Crazy Egg or any of the other products they probably need, right? What's like one of the most common, let's call it what it is, screw ups that are happening in conversion rate optimization? That's not, again, no magic bullet, because we agree there is no solution, right? There's only an optimization coming from a guy in SEO. Trust me, I know it continues to evolve, right? So I guess what would you, if you were to pick one thing right now that like everybody should just go check, is there something that would stand out to you?
Yes, I would say, because a lot of people are putting dollars into their marketing ads, getting actually that traffic to their site. So there's so much focus on those marketing dollars, getting the eyeballs to the site. But then they actually get to the landing page and there's like a lack of continuity between what they saw in the ad and what they're actually seeing on the site.
Yes.
I would say one of the number one issues is make sure whatever ads that you're paying money for, that you have continuity in terms of the promise that you're making within the ad, the title that you're making within that, that ad, and the image, that you're seeing the same thing on the landing page. Because once the visitor sees something different, they're like, "Oop, I made a mistake. I clicked on something wrong," and they're going to abandon. So you just want to make sure that that continuity is in place. I'm just going to say one more because it's really important.
No one's going to say no.
Calls to action above the fold. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
kind of like an ABCD. You just want to make sure that they know, first of all, what the action is and where it's going to take them and where it's going to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clearly stated at the beginning. Like, don't try to do a million things. Just have that primary goal and have it very clearly listed above that fold.
Yeah, I'll just throw in, right, the sexy hero image, all nice, but if I don't know what I'm at, that's great. Like, it's not, I don't need to see a moving image to necessarily be like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I need some confirmation, to your point.
Yeah.
In addition, by the way, if we're dealing with paid terms and so forth, which is kind of like my cousin, right, to SEO, keep in mind that there are a lot of ad messages that can be served to a lot of different keywords. Sometimes those keywords are not the ones that you intended them to show up for because they can be programmatic. Google's really good at taking your money. So, always check to make sure that the messages, to Yat's point, are actually meeting the need expressed by the user, especially in the search engine, and ultimately landing on a page that makes sense to that. That's just a fundamental. I'm so glad you brought that up. Amelia, give me your no. I can look at almost all the clients I go to, and when we first talk, I'll find fill in the blank.
Yes, I will say that almost our buyer is either a chief customer officer or a chief executive officer, and increasingly revenue and finance have a big say in customer experience. Mixed feelings on the revenue piece, owning so much of it. But what I will say is they all tell me we're unique, we have unique problems, and I swear the problems they have are always the same. So high burnout in customer success, expecting customer success managers to be able to do everything and provide everything to a customer. And if you are an enterprise platform and it's complex, you can't expect a customer success manager to do onboarding, professional services, adoption, revenue conversations. It's just, and marketing, the expansion, right, or the loyalty piece. It's asking a lot, and you're asking your CSMs to burn out quickly and to do each job poorly or with a 10%. So just really focusing on what is the customer experience that you want to give them across the journey, and then start breaking down who's responsible for what, and make sure there aren't silos. I can't tell you, even despite all the technology in the world, when we do these diagnostic assessments for companies and we end up doing the customer journey mapping, getting people in a room, what marketing says the customer experience is versus sales versus what professional services and CS is actually delivering, completely different stories.
Agreed. So agreed. You want to know your there's two things I say. You want to know your customer, go ask around the company, right? Your customer service team knows that a lot of their pains, right? Your salespeople know a lot of the they're going to know the competitive differentiators better than anyone else, right? And these things kind of all exist. So I'm a big fan of actually, you know, the answers are within your company. I also say, at least in search, your number one competitor is yourself. So it's the company that can organize itself in a more strategic way to cross those silos that Amelia is talking about that actually end up winning, right? It's not one thing for, you know, for a yachts team, let's say in the org, to know what's going to convert, but when her hard work turns into leads that go to Rick, let's say in sales, and Rick is there, but they don't match the intention of what actually is supposed to, he is assuming that's going to happen, there's a mismatch, right? And so the more everyone can kind of be on that same page, the better off I think we all end up. Rick, from your perspective, I think you've told us a lot of the pain. You poured a little bit of salt and some lemon on that for anyone who's in recruitment. I happen to be a Yahoo Hot Jobs alumni. I don't know if you knew that, but that's I've been in the job recruitment world, and I know how much that space has evolved, and people have had to become much more technologically savvy. So the value proposition you brought to the table with this idea of plug and play, move things, agility, and so forth has been not only a breath of fresh air, but I'm sure, as you can tell, adopted, right? What do you think is still an obstacle to these companies today? One that maybe you're trying to solve, or the next evolution? You don't need to give it all away, but I'm just thinking you solve a lot of things, but I'm sure you still see some misguided individuals. How could you give them a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, look, there are still a lot of, I guess what we see is essentially people who are never going to change their view on whether or not digitally recruiters need to be savvy. So you've got those people that will sit in a basket, in one basket, and they'll never change. They'll just say, it's a website that doesn't do anything for me. It's not going to give me any revenue. So they're the people that the ones that we obviously like working with are the innovators, the ones that want to outsmart their competitors, the ones that do want to become more efficient. And the money that's left on the table for us is really making sure that they don't need to have MailChimp and our system and their ATS, and they don't talk to each other. And so they have to export it from their ATS, upload it into MailChimp, and then when they unsubscribe from one, it doesn't tell the other one. So what we're trying to do is really bridge the gap by having one platform. So we're trying to become that top of funnel that integrates into the database system, so that those two are really the ones that talk to each other. So we're trying to have good connection. So we do have an integration with MailChimp so that it syncs, but we also are looking at our own email marketing platform that is even smarter, so that it knows, for example, if somebody applies for a job, what job it is, where it's located, how much paying, and put that into the CRM so that you can then say, find me engineers in Boston earning 100,000 and send them this message. So trying to get closer to those people and understand what they do and become faster at messaging them. So there are products already out there that do that, but again, they're sort of in the ATS and they don't talk to the website, so they don't go hand in hand. What we're trying to do is make it one ecosystem.
Yeah,
that's one part, and then there's a lot of other opportunities with data and analytics and making sure that they have every bit of data. So for the conversion optimization that Ayat was talking about, for us the biggest revelation is that most recruiters, I'd say almost every one of them, they'll spend money on Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere else, but they don't know how it converts into applications. And that's probably step number one for every recruiter, that they need to understand. If they spend $1,000 on Facebook, how many applications does it give them? If they spend money on Indeed, $10,000 a month, how many applications does it give them? And then work out an cost per application. So that's really crucial in recruitment land, to know what an application costs. So conversion optimization there is super important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I'll try and by the way, folks, if you have questions, start throwing them into the chat. We'd love to take some questions. We have about 10 minutes left, but I want to kind of thread a little something in my own world that kind of applies to all of this. So Rick, super quick question. How do you take the feedback from that 24/7 model? Are you using that feedback, like the customer service feedback? If you are, that's cool. If you're not, that's cool too, because a lot of companies are not yet doing that to the extent they need to. I'm sure Amelia's familiar with those.
So the 24 chat really, I mean, if an issue gets solved, we don't actually look at it. It's more when the 5% doesn't get solved, goes into our ticketing system, they obviously get tracked and we see patterns and we see things, etc. The 95% that gets solved is more educational, and sometimes people just want a quick answer. How do I do this? Okay, here's an article, or here's how you do it. So we don't tend to look at that because they get solved and happy customers. It's the 5% we look at.
What I'll say is, and what I've kind of done before, I'm actually in the midst of doing it for a client now, is that 95% can be very valuable, right? And the 95%, to your point, can actually be a content creation engine for you in terms of ensuring that the questions that your customers are actually going to end up being answered by you and not by someone else. I can't tell you how many times something as simple as, what's the pricing for? And the company's name, and it wasn't answered by the company because someone else was actually showing up in the answer box for it. So the ability to create that content, right, and ensure that you have that educational content, which adds value to, I'm sure, processes Amelia could probably go on a diatribe about in terms of how we should create a drip campaign or flow for that content to make sure it's finding the way in front of a consumer who may have that problem, but also it's kind of the prerequisite to, we know we have this problem. We know people tend to not find X. That's why they go to our chat. We solve it all the time, but maybe if they can find that answer before, they won't even have to go to the chat, right? We hope in the long run. That's where my content head immediately goes. Then I think, okay, we create those pages. We recognize the 5%, to your point, where they're, not getting solved. Amelia, where else do you source kind of that kind of data? Because for me, I'd immediately, like, my thought is, I'm taking that information, I'm going to an AI, one that's secured and not publicly shared, and I'm going to mine that data to find as much stuff as I can think of creating to solve for frequent problems, and then essentially think of new problems we might have.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, there are platforms out there like Clary. I mean, I'm biased. I used to work at WalkMe, but there's a lot of their competitors as well that really understands the user's experience and where there's the abandonment, right? And so if you do that across the customer journey, you can really understand, is this a product issue? Is there a bug in the system? Or why aren't customers or prospects ever clicking on this button? Is it hidden? Whatever it is, for example, or just not relevant. Like you've created something, you forgot to ask, is the consumer, is this something you actually want? Or like, did you build it because you thought it would be cool? So I think that's really where you start. The other important thing, and I think Ayat alluded to this earlier, all too often people forget to have conversations. They look at the data, they look at all this data, but they forget to include customer interviews or employee interviews. We insist on it when we do our diagnostic assessments, because what they're telling their managers, what they're even filling in the ENPS, the Employee Net Promoter Score. I know because I worked at a company where I was afraid, there was no psychological safety to be able to put, I'm in the following department, I'm at the following level, and here's my experience as a mother in tech. I was afraid I'd be fired. So of course I wasn't going to fill it in truthfully. Sure. But when you bring in a third party that's anonymous, that will do the surveys anonymously and interview you, you're able to aggregate that data, able to look for trends, and then report back to the executive very honest, not only assessment of your organization or why is there so much attrition, but also actionable recommendations. So yes, data is important. Go leverage all the platforms. I'm sure, Duda has all incredible data about the client experience as well. But also don't forget the human connection. That's very real, and it'll become even more important as AI picks up steam.
Mm-hmm. To tie that all together, and I think, by the way, do we have a question? Because I want to make sure that we do hit some questions. But Ayat, where do you think you can kind of add some fuel to that fire? I know obviously the conversations and the interview process is fundamental. How do you figure out the ones that didn't? Like, you know what, you're talking to the ones that did, right? When it's the clients, how do you figure out the ones that didn't and the psychology behind that?
So, I mean, there are different ways to try to capture customers that actually did not convert, but it is a little bit more challenging to do that. So you do have to kind of sometimes piece together and rely on data. But I do find, of course, like we actually leverage the customers' interviews into the actual site and the learnings, because they will talk about their negative experiences. They will talk about how they actually, came to the site and, what they were actually looking for and all of that. And the most persuasive and the best copy that we can actually utilize on the site in order to convert more customers is actually directly from the customer interviews that we conduct. But to Amelia's point, it's ultimately like, you don't want to get top of mind type of answers. I find that sometimes also NPS or, surveys and whatnot, you get a lot of like top of mind answers. But if you want to get into the nitty gritty details, you just have to talk to like, a human. And then, you can leverage AI, by the way, by a lot of times those interviews, putting all of that information into ChatGPT or, any of those other tools, and then extracting what are some insights that I can actually utilize that are actionable onto my site. What are some learnings and some takeaways that I can actually implement onto my site? So there's a lot of ways that you can just leverage whatever technology we have. It's always changing. So you just want to kind of keep a pulse on it in order for you to actually figure out how you can use it in your site to make a kind of a better converting website.
Love that. And key point about the AI aspect, folks, if you're going to use it, don't trust it. And by that, I mean, you don't blindly trust that, Ayat puts her feedback in there and we assume that, instantaneously we get magic. But in reality, it's just trying to figure out what the next words should be. It's not actually sentient. So it doesn't really know. So ultimately, make sure to ask it for citations. Make sure to ask it, where in the interview did you pull this stat that you're now telling me is fundamental to the strategy I should then go do, right? We want to make sure that all too often we don't. Are there any questions, Anton, that we want to put out here? I don't know if there are. No brave souls. That's A-okay. I will say it has been an absolute pleasure having you all here today. I know I've learned a whole bunch and thought through a whole bunch of things I wasn't thinking about before. Rick, amazing. I mean, congrats on the business. You've done such an amazing job of taking a technology like Duda as a middleware and applying it to something that clearly needed the help. Ayat, I think if anyone out there didn't understand or didn't see the extent to which Ayat can help you potentially with your CRO and your conversion rate, because again, it's great, but you first have to get them to actually click and go there. That's a big part of the equation. Ayat can definitely help you with that. And Amelia, I mean, no question, your knowledge and breadth of knowledge when it comes to, customer success and really the heart of what makes the customer continue to spend their time, treasure, and talent with the software is fundamental. So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know it's taking time out of everyone's day, but we really appreciate it. We appreciate everyone who's able to join the call, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next webinar. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.